Hello, hello, hello. What's up, everyone? How's everyone doing today? Oops, wrong button. I meant this one. Aha, there we go. One day I'll have a nice setup for screens and displays, but right now this is what you got. Oh. One sec. Sorry, she was chewing on something she shouldn't be. Poppy, you're still Vermont. I guess you'll be Vermont until for 6 months-ish. For another month or so? Yeah. Made me laugh though, yeah. Yeah, I getcha. Yeah, I can't remember the time limit on it. I think it's just about time to turn the air conditioning on in my place. It's too warm in the computer room right now. What is that? Oh, okay. Anywho, oops, me? Okay. Ooh, oops. Haha. Purple. Go back to planting. Anywho, so did we stream last week? Yeah, we did. I've been message Juby to get set up some DBD playthroughs. Anywho, last week we read 2 chapters. Dane and crew got to chorus and got everyone set up with their own ponies. Dane's officially now being taught by Numer after having fought off yet another storm-winging attack. And now with chapter 6, we're getting to see even more of the Numer's teachings for her. So, let's start, because I don't have a lot to talk about.
Nothing for me.
Alexa, stop. Chapter 6, Magelet. The next day, a month after her arrival, she was waiting for the trainees to finish their morning workout when she heard a low, persistent rumble. I'm working your model more today. Yay! Yeah. Yee. That's a good. I'm suddenly talking like Jar Jar Binks apparently, but I don't know why. But it is what it is. For a week, the hill above the barracks had swarmed with men loading empty wagons. Now, draft horses had been hitched to the wagons. One by one, they towed the laden vehicles up the hill. Sarge clapped Dane on the shoulder. This is it, he said cheerfully. The king is on his way, so we can be on ours. I'm ready. I'm confused, she said, straining to see his face. He's on what way? Hey, my lamb. In summer, the king goes on progress to see how fares the kingdom. As soon as he goes, the queen takes the trainees to our summer camp. Pirate swoop this year, Alana put in. She'd been training with the riders for the last week. We set out tomorrow. That isn't much notice, remarked Ferrant, who had overheard. How much notice do you need, trainee? Sarge asked. You have half a day to prepare. One day you'll have to roll out of bed ready for a long ride. Then you'll appreciate this leisurely pace. What the heck? Strange. Okay, weird. Technically, Jane thought that night the trainees didn't have even half a day to get ready. They'd put in their usual afternoon's work with their spare mounts. The only change in their routine was that they were excused from their lessons before meditation to pack. She hadn't been excused from her lessons, but she had little packing to do. Meditation was held, as always, in the mess hall, and everyone attended. When Numair gave the word to begin, she decided to try her idea from the night before. Instead of thinking of nothing, she closed her eyes and listened. How could breathing be so loud? She concentrated, putting the sound of her lungs aside. As the noise lessened, her nerves calmed. Her neck itched, but it was a distant feeling. Not a distant one. Not a distracting one. She scratched lazily and let her hand settle into her lap. A drum-like thud in her ears was her own heart. Easy, she told it in her mind, and the sound retreated. Something bumped steadily at the front of the mess. Dahoy, lying near Anua, was wagging his tail. Dane peeked and saw the dog shining with copper fire. She looked at Anua. The Khmer was veined with fine copper threads. Taking a deep breath, she looked inside. The wellspring of her own power was there, just as it had been the night by the Undine's pool. Remembering Numair's lectures, she trapped how it had felt just now to listen and to find her power, and memorized it. When she placed the feeling in her mind, she knew exactly where it was and how to find it again. Quickly. It's organized, she thought with an inner smile. She let the excitement fade and listened again. In the closed and dark kitchen at her back, mice hunted for scraps. She directed them to a rind cheese she'd hidden for them beneath the long table, then sent her hearing out of the mess hall into the night. Sounds crashed into her skull. Bats seeking insects, cats on the hunt, kenneled dogs settling for sleep, horses relaxing, the hawks in the palace muse. It was too much to hear all at once. She almost lost her inner silence in panic. Stopping, she pushed the animal sounds back of her mind until they didn't overpower her. Only when she was sure they were under control did she send her hearing out to the horse meadow once more. A herd of ponies, including Cloud, grazed there. All of them knew her by now, from the silent calling lessons. She joined with them, entering the herd. A breeze filled the air, bringing lush scents, ripe grass, leaves, the heady, rich smell of the earth. Around her were the others, her brothers and sisters. The king stallion watched over their family, ready to lead them to safety at the smallest hint of danger. Spring made them all coltish. With a snort, the king horse broke into a run, just to be running. The herd and Dane followed, racing, black earth thudding under their hooves, the night air in their nostrils. With the herd, she was safe. With the herd, she had all she could need of comrades and family. Cloud knew the instant Dane had come into the herd. She'd seen this coming, as the Stark man encouraged the girl to venture farther and farther from herself. Tonight, the feel of Dane's presence was stronger than it had been since they came to this giant human stable, making Cloud edgy. When Dane's spirit began to change to take on the scent of the herd, the mare knew they were in trouble again. She ran for the fence and jumped it. From the meadow, she felt the herd call her to go with them. She wavered, wanting to follow. Then, with an angry neigh at the part of her that made her think unhorse-like things, she broke free of the call and ran to the stable where Dane's body was. The gate was barred. She flung herself at it, flailing with her hooves, putting her hindquarters to it. She kicked the gate once, and again, until the large human, the wood-brown man, yanked it open. She shoved past him. No time to be polite, and looked around this room that smelled of human food. Sure enough, there Dane sat on the ground, front hooves limp in her lap, eyes closed. Cloud went to the girl and knocked her over. A warm force slammed into Dane's body. Suddenly she was free of the herd, safe inside her own mind. Opening her eyes, she saw Cloud standing over her. People around them were talking. "I did it again, didn't I?" she whispered. Numair knelt beside her, dark eyes worried. "What happened? She nearly kicked down the door to get at you." Dane was shaking. They didn't know. They didn't know what Cloud had prevented. "Thank you," she told the mare. "Don't run with the people again until you remember to hold on to yourself," the mare ordered. "I won't always be here to wake you up." Dane fumbled in her pocket and produced 2 lumps of sugar. "You'd best go outside now," she whispered, and Cloud obeyed. Numair helped the girl to her feet. "It's alright," he told everyone. "We were just trying an experiment. I didn't realize it would work so well." Shielding her from the stares of the trainees, he guided Dane out of the mess into her own room. "What happened?" he asked, closing the door. "I felt sick," she lied. "Just a headache, that's all." "Cloud wouldn't come here for that," he retorted. "She was in a panic. What went wrong? And what's this?" The badger's token had fallen outside her shirt. He picked it up, squinting at it. From its appearance, it's a claw. It's mine, she retorted, yanking it away from him. It's private. Can't I have anything private anymore? Dane. Her voice rose. She knew she was about to cry. Would you please go away? I'm tired and my head hurts. Can't you leave me alone for once? Very well. His face was grave and sad. But I wish you would trust me. He left quietly, shutting the door. Dane sat on her bed, tears on her cheeks. What could she do? If she went too deep in meditation, she risked madness. If she didn't go deep, he said I might learn to heal, she thought desperately, squeezing the claw tight. I have to master this first, or I'll never be able to heal. Caught between fear of losing control and wanting the power Numair said she could have, the girl tossed and turned all night. She would doze off, only to dream of running down a forest trail on all fours. Behind her would be the trainees, or the King's Own, or Stormwings, tracking her so they could tear her to pieces. Habit woke her at dawn, the hour Sarge usually bellowed for everyone to turn out. That morning, the trainees had been given an extra hour of sleep, which meant if she hurried, she'd have the stable to herself. Soundlessly, she called Cloud in for a thorough grooming and breakfast. There'd be no time for it later on. Anya had asked her to handle the supply wagon, and Dane expected her time before they left would be spent looking over the cart horse and making sure any last-minute additions to her load were safely stowed away. A stranger was in the stable, a pot-bellied man the ponies greeted with enthusiasm from their stalls. Copper fire shone inside his red face. When he saw her, his head flew up as if he were a surprised horse. Suddenly shy, Dane halted just inside the door. Excuse me, might you be Stefan, the chief hostler? Maybe. Who are you? He can't see it in me, she realized. I can see his magic, but he can't see mine. Dane, sir. Master Numair said you have wild magic. So do I. The man relaxed. Slightly. You're the one then. I bring ye a cart horse. He led her to a newcomer, a sturdy bay cob. This be Mangle. Dane offered the gelding her hand to sniff. Mangle? She asked with a grin. The cob felt like a calm, well-behaved sort of horse to her. Stefan smiled and ducked his head. Oh, well. He muttered by way of explanation. Anyways, he's good for whatever you need in the way of work. Dane leaned down to blow into Mangle's nostrils. He likes ye. Anya said I needn't worry if you was in charge of him. Cloud butted him from behind. Who's this fine lady? He bent to the task of greeting the mare. While Dane finished getting acquainted with the cob, when she finished, Stefan was looking at her oddly. You know, this little beauty's changed because of you. She couldn't tell what the emotion in his pale blue eyes was. Me and Cloud have been through a lot together. He gave the mare a last pat. It shows. With a wave to Dane, he walked to the stable door. Master Stefan. He turned to look at her. Do you ever want to run with a herd? To just be a horse? Do what the herd does? She sweated, waiting for an answer. It had cost a lot to ask. Of course I do, was a mild reply. Don't everybody? She gripped the badger's claw, hidden under her shirt. What keeps you from doing it? He rubbed his straw-like hair. I'm a man. I can't be running with the herd. Now can I? He left, closing the door behind him. It makes it sound so easy, but it's not. There's something wrong with me. He decided. It's the madness, just waiting for me to drop my guard so he can take me again. That's how he can protect himself. He never forgets what he really is. And I can't remember. Taking Cloud into an empty stall, the girl swore she would never let her guard down again. Better to disappoint new Mare in her studies than to run wild and lose the friendships and respect she had found in this new country. She was almost done with Cloud when Aniwa came into the stable. There you are. Did Stefan bring our car horse? Dane jerked a thumb at him. His name is Mangle. Aniwa grinned at the bay as the bay sniffed her pockets. Is that so? Looking at Dane as she fed the cob an apple, she asked, Did you meet Stefan? The girl nodded. Aniwa, about last night. I'm sorry. For what? Khmer gave Mangle a last pat and went to see to her own 2 ponies. Dane, your magic is taking you down a different road from most folk. Your friends understand that. If you don't, stop worrying so much. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me. Get moving. We want to be assembled and ready to go when the first morning bell rings. When she'd eaten a quick breakfast, Dane finished stowing the officers' packs in the wagon, harnessed Mangle to it, and drove it to the flat area in front of the horse meadow gate where the riders would assemble. The Queen, Bertie, Aniwa, and Sarge turned their spare mounts over to her to lead, so they would be free to range along with the trainees column during the ride. The girl considered roping the 3 ponies and Sarge's horse together for appearance's sake, and decided not to. All 4 mounts knew her well and promised to walk in their own column on one side of the wagon. Alana waved as she rode past on Dark Moon, going to wait with the Queen. Dane grinned, knowing the lioness would be more talkative after lunch. She had started to wonder about new Mare when several packs thudded into the back of the wagon. The mage rode up on a black and white gelding, looking tired. As if to prove it, once he stopped, he lay along his horse's neck. Wake me when we stop for lunch, he said, and, to all appearances, went to sleep. Dane looked at him, smiling, dressed in a brown tunic, white shirt, and green breeches. He looked like the man she had known on the road to chorus, not the silk-clad friend of kings who'd been giving her lessons. The jeweled pins and rings he'd been worn since his return to court were nowhere to be seen. The only hint of his apparent wealth was a large amber drop, dangling from one earlobe. Slowly, 23 trainees assembled ahead of Dane in 2 columns, leading their spares on the outside. Each was inspected by the Queen, Buri, Sarge, or Aniwa. Some, including Ferrant and Zelda, were sent to the barracks to lighten their packs. 4 trainees, again including Zelda, were sent back twice, this time with Sarge to harry them. Dane could hear his bellowed, "Riders travel light," when he was inside the barracks with his victims. At last, everyone was ready. Alana and Buri took places on the left, Sarge and Aniwa on the right. Outside the columns, Ayet rode at the head of the company, and Dane dodged Numair. He opened a bloodshot eye. I think this is it, she whispered. He nodded and straightened in the saddle. It was. Ayet unsheathed her slightly curved blade and held it aloft. Riders, move out, she cried, her clear voice rippling through the columns, and started forward. The trainees followed, keeping the prescribed distance between their mounts as they took a well-marked road into the royal forest. Dane's Dane's skin quivered with goosebumps. That's fair beautiful, she said to no one in particular. Gee up, Mangle. squint. Yeah, I kind of combined skin and quivered together for a moment. So I was just like trying to read 2 words at once. The company stopped at noon for lunch. After cleanup, the trainees and officers switched mounts. Dane, her shame about the previous night put aside, tried not to smile when Numair asked if she minded if he rode with her. She agreed instantly. It was hard to be aloof from a man whose seat on a horse was so bad that he had to feel every bump on the road. Making friends with his patient gelding, Spots, she told the horse he deserved a carrot for being bearing such an ungraceful rider, and gave it to him. Things went better during the afternoon. They picked up speed, covering some distance before camping for the night. Supper came from kettles that had been stowed in her wagon, their contents gently reheated over that night's fires. "Tomorrow you hunt for your meal," Sarge warned as they filled their bowls with stew. "You'd best make less noise, my lambs, or you won't eat." Dane, settling between Miri and Evan, fought to hide a smile. Returning to the fires after she had cleaned and put away her things, she was intercepted by Numair and led away from the trainees to an isolated clearing. "Lessons," he said firmly. "As long as you and I are within riding distance of each other, my magelet, we will have lessons." She couldn't protest. Really. She knew the trainees were having lessons, and unlike them, she didn't have the excuse of having fought 2 spirited ponies all day. With a sigh, she took a seat on a nearby rock. Numair put her book on another rock, for Cloud, who joined them, couldn't nibble on it, and took a tailor's seat next to Dane. He rubbed his large hands together. "Tonight, we'll try something a bit different. While you were washing up, I untethered Mangle and Spots. I want you to call them both to us at the same time." "Why can't I call them one at a time?" "You're being difficult," was the forbidding reply. "It don't make sense." "Remember the storming attack at the horse meadow? You called quite a few animals to you, all at once. You might need to do something like that again one day. Wouldn't it be nice if, instead of calling entire herds, you only called enough horses to keep you safe?" He had her there. She found the copper thread in her mind, the one she wrapped around to call an animal, and held it. "Mangle, Spots," she called. "Would you come here, please?" They crashed through the brush, coming up to nuzzle her and Numair. "See? That wasn't so bad," he told her. "Send them back, please." With an apology and a short explanation to the horses, Dane obeyed. Numair held up a thumb and forefinger. Between them sparked a tiny ball of his magic. "Anua, now if you please," he said calmly. Putting thumb and forefinger together, he snuffed the ball out. "Our friend is releasing some of the other mounts," he told Dane. "How many has she loosed?" Dane listened. "Not with my ears," she reminded herself. "Spots and Mangle are still free. Ani was loosed, let's see, Ox and General, Sarge's 2 horses, and her pair, Whisper and Sulk. And also Dark Moon." "Call them," Numair said. She struggled with calling magic. It only worked for 1 creature, or 2 at best, because all she did was focus the magic on an easy-to-hear mind. To call several minds, she had to open her mind to her surroundings. She tried it, and lost her concentration when an owl screeched overhead. "Relax," Numair said, his voice pitched low. "It gets easier with practice. Find them and call them. Softly. You don't need too much. She nodded, wiped her face on her sleeve, and tried again. Closing her eyes, she listened for the ones who were free of their ropes. That was easy. The tethered horse was always aware of the thing that kept him from getting that extra juicy clump of grass just out of reach. There, she heard them. She opened the cupboard in her mind, where she'd put all her calling skill. A scent of deer in the breeze, a frog croaking in the distance, a soft patter of bats hunting overhead. The herd was around her, contentedly browsing in lush, fat grasses that had been amazingly overlooked by the deer. Ox in general were with her. Then Whisper, Sulk, Spots, Mangle, Darkmoon, young and blood-proud, fought her command. She'd teach them to obey with teeth and hooves if need be, to give way to her domination. She gasped and threw herself out of the magic. The herd had caught her up so much easier than last night. I can't, she told Ymir, her voice shaking. My head aches. You must learn this. For the first time since she started her lessons, his voice was stern. You didn't have a headache before. Try again. I can't, she thought. There was no sense in telling him that, not unless she wanted to tell him everything. Desperate, she cheated and hated herself for cheating. She wrinkled her face, clenched her teeth, shut her eyes. Also, he'd think she was trying, but she kept her mind blank. She did this over and over until he sighed. Perhaps I pushed too hard. You've done well. Too well, perhaps. Most apprentice mages take over a year to make the progress you have in a month. She stared at him. I thought I wasn't... How can you tell? Scared, she added. Can you see my mind? No, I wouldn't if I could. We all have secrets. Sadness moved over his face, making her wonder what his secrets were. Then he smiled. I'm a mage, a well-educated one. When I wish I can see things hidden from normal vision, like a person's magical aura. See mine? He lifted his hands. White fire laced with shadows outlined his fingers. The first day I was strong enough to do it, I examined your aura. He let the brilliance fade. Your magic was like a tangle of vines around you, going in 100 directions. You've been getting that tangle under control, pulling it inside your skin, and you're doing it faster than anyone I've ever known. Well, perhaps you've earned a night of rest. Come on, let's go back to the others. We'll meditate and stop there for the night. She started to protest the meditation and kept her silence. I'll just pretend, like with the calling, she told herself. When they stepped into the clearing where the riders were camped, Adrak was saying in his mountain burr, why won't he declare war then? It's true, Karthak has the greatest standing army in the world, the lioness replied. Sarge was rolling up a large map that had been spread out on the ground. But to attack us, they have to cross the water at every turn. The inland sea, or come up our coast on the Emerald Ocean. We have the advantage, being firmly on land when they have to come ashore to engage us. The navy's grown since my lord came to the throne, Sayet put in. The queen was dressed like the others in homespun breeches and tunic and a plain white shirt. Her glorious hair was severely pinned down, but nothing could dim the beauty of her face and clear, level eyes. The Emperor's policy of coastal raiding and paying bandits to attack in the mountains and the hills has made the people in those areas determined to fight. Also, since His Majesty built his university outside Chorus, we've brought a lot of mages to Turtal. Enough even to make Emperor Orzorn's trained sorcerers think twice about taking us on. And only a fool would want to attack King Jonathan without some kind of real advantage, Numair said. Not on Dortalan's soil. Why is that, Master Numair? Asked Miri. And Jonathan's magic and the magic of the crown are tied into every grain of soil in this land, explained the mage. Unless an enemy has some kind of advantage that will hurt the king or keep him from calling on his magic, it's possible that every tree, stream, and rock would form death traps for an enemy. Dane could see it in the trainees' faces. The fear of a warrior would live with when the land itself fought him. The thought gave her goosebumps. Very well, my dubs. It's that time again. Sarge barked after giving the trainees a moment to reflect on such warfare. Seat yourself comfortably, but not too comfortably. Dan settled near the edge of the trees around the clearing. Within a few moments, the only sound to be heard was the breathing of the others. She watched them, envious. In the month she'd been with the riders, she'd come to see that meditation supplied them with something they got nowhere else. A time to be calm. A time to find quiet inside themselves. It would be useful when they were living in the wilderness, hunting raiders and being hunted, she realized. Tonight, especially, she envied them, that serenity. She wished she could find some measure of quiet in herself. Carefully, gingerly, she closed her eyes and drew a breath. It was all right. She was safe. She released the breath, took another. Peace wrapped her like her mother's arms. She opened her ears to the night. In the distance, a wolf howled and got no answer. Poor Wind Brother, she thought sadly. No one to sing with. No brothers and sisters to hunt with. Like me. It's so lonely outside the pack. As she breathed, her body fell into the habit she'd been making for it. Her mind cleared. Her heartbeat slowed. Forgetting her danger, she opened herself to the music of the forest. The swish of tails, the shifting of feet, the crunch of grass under broad teeth. A sense of peace and solidity flowed out from the humans to infect their mounts. The herd was content. Once again she forced herself awake, to find she'd sweated her clothes through. What am I going to do? She asked Cloud as the mare nuzzled her. I can't even close my eyes without it happening. It doesn't happen when you sleep, Cloud reminded her. It's only when you use that fire stuff, the thing that makes you people. Or when you do that sitting thing. Leave the fire stuff and the sitting thing alone and you'll be fine. Jane shook her head. It seems like I can't win for losing, she told Cloud silently. Sometimes I think I should never have left home. The next day, the riders picked up the pace. There were fewer stops as they headed through the coastal hills. Those that were made were shorter. Jane faked her lessons that night as she had faked her meditation. She thought she handled it well too, until Numair stopped her just before she climbed her bedroll. Are you alright? He asked, feeling her forehead. Is something wrong? She looked up at him. She swallowed hard. What's wrong except for me being worked to death? She asked, trying to put him off by being rude. Honestly, aren't you still fussing at me for one day? Dahoy whined from a spot near Anua's bed, worried by Dane's tone. Glancing over at him, Dane saw that Anua, Evan, Miri, and the lioness had heard her as well and were staring at her as if she'd just grown horns. I'm tired of being watched all the time too. She struggled into her blankets and wrapped herself in them, not wanting to see how they reacted to that. She heard Numera sigh. He patted her shoulder. Sleep well, Agelet. He walked away as Tahoe came to lie down next to her. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she hid her face in her covers. I'm afraid, she wanted to tell her human friends. I'm afraid if I go any deeper in my magic, I'll forget who I am. She woke in the morning to a campsite draped in fog. Without speaking to anyone, she groomed and fed Mangle and Cloud, and hitched Mangle to the wagon. She drove in silence all day, ignoring the worry she saw on Aniwa's and Numera's faces. The fog burned off by mid-morning, leaving the air crisp. By afternoon, the breeze coming out of the west bore a new scent to it, tangy and strange. She sniffed it often, wondering what it was. That's the sea, Miri told her when she saw Dane lift her nose to the air. Her cheeks were flushed, her green eyes sparkled. It's close. That's brine you smell, and seaweed. I can't believe how much I missed it. If she starts to talk nautical, plug your ears, Evan advised. She's just showing off. Miri stuck her tongue out at him. Their road topped a rise, and a new world spread itself before them. Dane dropped her reins. Goddess glory, she breathed. Miri beamed with pride. I told you. Nothing had prepared her for this. Endless blue-gray water stretched north to south, and waves pounded the rocky coast. Salt winds nearly plucked off her headscarf before she retied it. In the distance, a toy with a dab of sail bobbed along. A boat, she realized, but far off. Soon they reached the coast road, crossing it to pitch camp on a sandy cove. Automatically, she cared for Mangle and Cloud, barely able to take her eyes off the water that smashed against the sand. Every time she blinked, something new appeared. Even Cloud's accusation that she looked like a cow standing about with her jaw open had no impact. She was entranced. Soon they reached the coast road, crossing it to pitch camp on a sandy cove. I just realized I just skipped back to the same paragraph. As soon as archery practice was done, Miri and Alana took the trainees to find supper in the rock pools at the northern curve of the beach, leaving the officers and Dane to entertain themselves. Diet removed her boots and stockings, rolling up the legs of her breeches. Come on, she told Dane. We'll go for a walk. She ran to join the queen, trying to shed her boots at the same time. The woman laughed and steadied her as Dane rustled her foot gear off. It won't go away, she said. Slow down. Aniwa says you never saw it before. No, Mum. She made sure her breeches rolled above the knees like the queen's were tucked in securely. Then look. See how steep the beach is? It means waves pound it hard. They create a force called undertow that grabs you and drags you out if you aren't careful. The easier a beach slopes into the water, the less undertow you'll find. Never forget it's there, Dane. Quiet's low voice was stern. Plenty of good swimmers drown because they can't fight that drag. Dane nodded soberly. This place has dangers, like any other part of the world. That made sense. Then let's go. The queen stepped down as a wave hit the shore and let foaming water surround her ankles. Dane took a breath and followed. The water was icy. When it met her skin, she heard singing. Gasping, she jumped back. Ayet stood ankle deep in the retreating waves, fighting to keep her balance as they ate the sand under her feet. too cold? She asked, grinning. She doesn't hear it, Dane thought. Come on, the queen urged. You'll be numb before long. She walked forward, stopping when the water swirled around her knees. Lifting her face to the sun, she gave a loud, blood-curdling war cry. Not yet, stop that Numair called, his breeches rolled up. He had gone to explore a lumpy and pitted block of stone that had at the northern edge of the beach. He held up something. Come look at this. Hayat went to him. Dane walked forward, immersing her feet to the ankles as a wave overtook her. A few steps more, she was far enough in the water that the wave's backward crawl didn't leave her dry. Singing was not right, but she had no idea of what the proper term might be. Part of it was a croon, the speech of a wolf mother to her cubs, that held past a wolf's ability to hang on to a note. A moaning whistle followed, then a series of short, high notes. The quality of the eerie calls was something like sound carried inside a cave. Almost, but not entirely. Hello? She cried silently. All she needed was for Numair to ask why she was talking to the ocean. Who are you? There was no answer, not even the shift of attention she felt in most animals. Were these monsters? No, there was no gold fire in her mind. She gripped a thread of her magic as much as she dared use and tried again. Is anyone there? It's me. It's Dane. Can you hear me? The songs. There were many, all beautiful and different, faltered. Call? The voice was faint and alien, unlike any animal voice she'd heard in her life. She strained to hear without using her power to help her listen. Yes, I'm calling. Me, here by the rocks. No call. I called. I did. Where are you? Who are you? Calf call? No call. I'm not loud enough, she realized. If I use my magic, maybe they could hear me. I don't dare. Saya yelled, trying to get Dane's attention. Dane turned, but before she could answer, a heavy form slammed into her. Down she went, mouth filling with brine. Trying to rise, she was slammed again and thrust deeper into the water by an animal's impact. She opened her mouth to scream and breathed seawater. Miri and Evan said later she popped into the air to hang upside down from an unseen hand. Pouring water as she fought. She only knew she was free to cough and vomit out the liquid that had nearly killed her. Looking down, she shrieked, clawing at the invisible grip on her ankles. Then the hands that weren't there whisked her to the beach, where Anua waited with a blanket. Dane was put gently on her feet, but her knees gave. Anua caught her before she fell. Numair strode down to the beach toward them, his face like a thundercloud. Black fire shot with white light gathered around his outstretched hand. Sarge grabbed up a quiver of javelins. Burry her double-curved bow. Both raced to attack the brown creature, lumbering up onto shore. Dane saw them just in time. No, don't! She threw herself in front of the animal. Don't! She screeched, and fire left Numair's fingers, flying at them. He twisted his hand, and it vanished. Touching the blanket around her, she faced the one who had tried to kill her. He returned her look with huge, liquid brown eyes set in a pointed face capped by a small crest. His body was wide at the center and pointed at both ends, covered with slick, blonde-brown fur that went light and shaky around his head. He waddled toward her on fins that ended in claws. Curiously, she touched his chin and lifted his head, the better to see his slit-like nostrils and small, curled leaf ears. Like most of the big predators she had met, he chose to speak in sounds. He chattered away in sharp, varied barks. He was confused. He thought she was a rival male, come to take his harem. She looked where he did, 12 furry lumps, all a fourth to a third smaller than the male, watched her from the most southern arm of the cove. Why did you think I was another male? She asked, curious. She felt like one, a king bull. He'd been terrified. He was young, and the power of her mind had convinced him she could easily take his females. Well, I'm no king bull, Dane assured him, tickling his curved whiskers until he calmed down. I'm just me, whatever that is. He was relieved his harem was safe. May I visit after supper? She asked. Food? Pictures of fat, juicy fish were in his mind, and the knowledge he couldn't leave the females to hunt. She promised to bring something. It seemed the least she could do after giving him such a scare. He barked his thanks and slipped into the water, anxious to return to his mates before another male sneaked up on them. I forgot to ask what he was, Dane muttered to herself. Sea lion. Miri had come to stand beside her. They're touchy in the breeding season. The way he went for you, it looked like he thought you were another male coming to steal his wives. Do they eat in the breeding season? Dane asked, curious. Not the beachmasters. If they hunt, another male will take their harems. They can go 2 months without food. Wave Walker, defend us. Look! A huge shape, far bigger than the sea lions, shot out of the water at the mouth of the cove. A great, lumpy gray thing that cleared the water and plunged back in with a tremendous splash. I can't believe they came so close to land, Mary whispered. Hey, who? Dane's heart was thudding. Is that a fish? Mary shook her head. They suckle their young, like furred animals. Mammals, Dane supplied, from what Numair had taught her. Oh! That was a humpback whale. Whales are the biggest things in the sea. They sing, you know. Dane grabbed her friend's arm. What do you mean, sing? Well, not singing, not like us. They talk in sounds, whistles, some of them, and moans, eerie noises. You should hear them from a boat in the middle of the ocean. It comes right through the wood, fills the air. Supper was ready by the time Dane had washed in a freshwater creek and put on dry clothes. She ate little, pondering the whale songs and her failure to reach the singers. After chores, she gathered up extra food in her bedroll. No lessons? Numair asked quietly. I promised I'd bring him something to eat. I do need a holiday. She looked away, rather than meet his eyes and see disappointment in them. If that's what you want, good night then. But he watched her all the way as she walked down to the sea lions. The beachmaster greeted her and her food with enthusiasm, and let one of his wives show the girl the first of that spring's new pups. When she slept, it was with her cheek pillowed on a yearling's flank, and with heavy, fishy, smelly bodies ranged around her. The badger came. His fur was puffed out. He was very, very angry. I have lost all patience with you, he snorted. If you were my kit, I'd knock you tail over snout. When will you stop being stubborn? I didn't guide you all this way so you could fail to learn what you must. Tell these people what happened at the town of yours. Tell them what you're afraid of. Did you think I would send you to more hunters? Predators, she told him. The smack of one heavy paw, he knocked her onto her behind and jumped onto her chest. Don't talk back, youngster. Have you no sense? Your time is running out. Soon the storm will be here. Lives depend on learning your lesson. I realize you're only a kid, but even you must see more is at stake than your fear of the hunt. Now promise me you will tell them. She hesitated, and the badger snarled, Promise me. He bore down on her with his will, thrusting his face into hers. She wondered later if it was the force of his mind or the overpowering reek of his supper, decayed rabbit and a few worms, that made her surrender. I promise. Tomorrow, and not one day later. He climbed off her chest, and she could breathe. She sat up, pulling air into her squashed lungs. Well, you're a good enough girl, he grumbled. It was as much of an apology from him as she would get. I just worry about you, and things are moving so fast. He lifted his nose and sniffed. Phew, these friends of yours stink of fish. She woke to fog, dense and wet, beating in the sea lion's fur. She winced. Sitting up, she winced. She felt like one large bruise. Luck had been with her the day before. If she hadn't been in shallow water, she would have died, smashed by 450 pounds of fast-moving sea lion. On top of the bruised ache were new, sharp pains. Peering inside her shirt, she found deep gouges, 4 on each shoulder, as if a badger had rested his weight there. The morning fog turned into rain, and Thaya announced they would remain in their present camp. Steeling herself, Dane approached Aniwa and Numair as breakfast was being served. Can I talk to you later? She asked. Alone? She swallowed. There's something about me you ought to know. A few words, Thaya and Buri were all that was needed. Numair and Aniwa followed her to the south end of the cove, where a rock overhang kept a strip of sand dry. Numair built a fire. The hoy sprawled between him and Aniwa, head in Aniwa's lap, his belly to the warmth of the flames. Cloud lay down so Dane could lean against her, encouraging the girl silently. Is it so hard to begin? Aniwa asked. Dane looked at the high waves, feeling her chin quiver. She gripped the badger's claw for reassurance. Oh yes. Don't interrupt me. If I'm stopped, I don't know if I'd have the courage to go on. Drawing a breath through a chest that had gone all tight, she began. When the thaw came, end of January, nothing would do for Ma but I go to the next valley over and visit her friend that married a shepherd there. She heard that Lori, her friend, was coughing a lot, and Ma had a syrup to give her. She made me promise not to come home in the dark, but stay over till morning. Sometimes I wonder if she just knew. Probably not. As a foreteller, Ma always made a good cook. So I saddled out and went. Lori was glad to see me. Her and Rand, her husband, always treat me nice. There was a new baby she let me play with. They're sweet when they're that little, and Rand wanted me to take a look at his best ewe. Good thing I did. She was getting set to give him twin lambs, only breech birth, which might have killed them and their ma. So I was up late, and Lori let me sleep till noon. Coming out of their place, I couldn't see anything anywhere but fog. Couldn't smell, couldn't hear. I was clear to our village before I knew. They hit around dawn. The mill was burned, the miller dead. They took the wheelwright's oldest girl and the headman's wife. Really, they might have passed my house by, Ma having the gift, but they remembered she was pretty too, see? They fought. All of them. Ma, Granda, dogs, ponies, horses, even the stupid chickens. Even Ma's geese. Not the rabbits. They left. Well, they never fight. You can't ask them to go against their nature. But the rest fought. They killed some of the bandits. The bandits went crazy. They killed everything on the farm and didn't carry any of it away. Mammoth told me. Mammoth was my boss dog. He said they was too scared of animals who fought like that. Mammoth told me what happened and died. So we buried them, me and Cloud, every last one of our family. Cloud's dam and Skyr, her brothers, are in those graves. I straightened up the house, what was left. The raiders had tried to burn it, but only the upper story and the roof were gone. Ma had a bunch of charms against fire in the kitchen, so most of the downstairs was saved. It was 2 days before anyone came to see her. After Ma helped them birth their children and nursed them when they was sick. 2 days! She could have been alive and hurt all that time. The bandits had passed us by. Ma would have been at the village with the medicines and bandages, making me and Granda help. When I saw them, I just popped. I said, "Get out!" Threw rocks and they ran. You got to understand. There was all this mad inside me, all this hate and wildness. I couldn't hold it. My animal friends, they were the only ones who came right off to see if I was alive. I was going to them when I found the blood trail the bandits left. I knew where the pack of wolves was. The boss male and female thought I was smart for a two-legger. It took explaining. They don't hunt their own kind. It's one thing to run another pack off your territory, but to hunt each other like their prey, that makes them sick. When I showed them our farm, well, it made them crazy. We picked up the bandit trail and found them in some caves. It was hard keeping the pack from taking the bandits all at once. I didn't want the wolves to get killed. We picked off 3 shifts of sentries because nobody was awake or sober enough to remember if the old sentries came back. When the other bandits came out in the morning, we took them. I remembered enough to let the women taken from the village loose and kept my pack brothers from killing them too. By then, I was gone wild entirely. I went to all fours, and me and the pack denned in the bandit caves. I was safe with the pack. Cloud couldn't even talk to me. It scared her silly being around the wolves. I remembered she was family. I wouldn't let them get her. There was plenty of me anyway from all the bandits stole. We heard the humans coming. I told the pack to go to the old den. I waited to see what was what. Maybe I was getting human again. A little. I hid in the bush. They sent Hakon Falconer ahead. Shocked to me. He used to visit Ma and stay over before he married again. He'd have wed Ma, but I heard her tell him my da wouldn't like it. She always spoke of my da that way, as if he was just around the corner. Anyway, Hakon treated me all right, even after he married, because I helped with the birds. He said the woman we set loose made it home and told what we did. He said I'd best come in now, or I took sick. He said he'd put me up, and I could earn my keep with him. He trained falcons for our lord. I came out into the road. They'd have had me. The cloud snuck up on one of the archers and kicked him. He shot too soon, and I ran. Hakon said I was crazy. It was for my own good. He said I was like the rabid bear. I had to be put down merciful. If I'd come out, it'd be over in a minute. It didn't hurt at all. The rest of them were calling me a monster. Then they tried to set the dogs on me. The dogs wouldn't go. When them with ponies tried to come after me, the ponies threw them and lit out for home. The men should have known they couldn't get their animals to come after me. Me and Cloud headed up into the rocks. Trouble was, they were mountain men. They were trackers, even without dogs. I wasn't thinking like a human, so I didn't remember to hide my trail. The weather didn't help either. I don't know how long they hunted me. I think it was most of a week. I got pretty tired and cold and hungry. Cloud saved me. She started to nip and bite at my arms. See, this one left a scar above my elbow. She only left me alone when I got my hind feet When I got used to walking like that, I remembered I was human. I knew I had to get out to Snowsdale. I snuck back home, got the things I had left, and came south. That's why I've been scared with the lessons. It never happened before my folks got killed. But now, when I go too deep into my magic, or the meditating, when I'm by myself, I start thinking like the closest group of animals, like a herd of horses, or a pack. I forget I'm human. I forget I'm me. I was afraid to tell the truth. You don't know what it's like, having them you knew all your life hunt you like you was a deer. Hearing them on your trail and knowing if you don't start running, your hide will get stretched on a frame and the rest of you goes into someone's stew pot. I was crazy, running on all fours, hunting with a pack. I wanted to forget all that, if I could. I wanted to be all new here, all normal, just like everyone else. Only, I guess I can't. The badger says I have to learn. Time is it? I think I'm gonna end it here. My voice is rough. You like Dane? Yay! Dane has always been my favorite series. One, because it's the first series I read of Tamora's. And two, because animals. I should head to bed a bit anyways. Got an eyelash perm. Eyelash perm tomorrow? What's an eyelash perm? Like going to perm your eyelashes so they stick up. Okay. Pretty nifty though? Okay. All I can imagine is trying to turn your eyelashes curly, like into ringlets. It's just perm sloosh. I see. Interesting. The little speed bumps that you put on your eyelids, curl the eyelashes over those upwards. I see. Interesting. Excuse me. I feel like I've been sleeping all day and I'm still tired. And I'm headachy. Probably from oversleep. Yeah, I hope not downwards, because downwards it's just asking for them to be in your eyes. They fall into your eyes enough as it is. I pull mine out. Yeah. I do that too. I used to. I've kind of worked that out of my system a while back, but every once in a while when my eyes are bothering me, it's becomes a thing again. Ugh. Oh, I'm tired. And tomorrow I get to see how HR has screwed us over. So that'll be fun. I almost want to call in sick tomorrow just because I just don't want to deal with HR. But yeah. Anywho, I am gonna jump off for the night. Um, hmm, let's see if there's anyone I could send y'all to. Who's streaming right now? You know what? Let's send y'all to Vaughn, who's playing Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I have no idea what that is. I kind of want to know, so go say hello, Slime Raid, and all that. Have a good night, everyone. Bye.